Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This is the Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back on the Roger Stone Show here at the Red Apple Audio Network. President Donald Trump is working at breakneck speed to change the direction of the American government. It is not unlike turning an ocean liner around, but in many ways, I feel that he will be an even greater president in this new term than he would have been had he been rightfully awarded the presidency in 2020. I think these 4 years in the wilderness and also fighting the tsunami of lawfare against him have prepared him for this moment. He has a fuller understanding now of how Washington works, about how the two-party duopoly works, about how our criminal justice system has been weaponized, and he is moving quickly. Now, he is using tariffs, I think, as an extraordinarily effective weapon to get better trade deals with our trading partners. There are those who criticize his policies. So I decided to go to the man I respect most when it comes to all economic questions. That would be Barry Habib. He is the chief executive officer of MBS Highway. Barry Habib is not only an American entrepreneur, but he is recognized as one of the country's foremost experts on mortgage and the housing industries, but he is far more than that. He is a sage analyst of the American economy. So whether it is the new inflation numbers or the new unemployment numbers, I've always found that Barry Habib tells me both before they happen and after they happen exactly what is happening and what they really mean. He is the author of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, Money in the Streets. I'm honored to call him a friend, but he is truly my favorite economic guru. Barry Habib joins the Roger Stone Show now.
Roger, thank you so much for having me. What a kind introduction. Appreciate you, my friend.
Well, it's only the truth. Let's start with the tariffs. I know President Trump. I've known him for almost 50 years. I think at heart he is a free trader. That means he would love to have free trade if it were possible. But free trade means fair trade, meaning trading deals that are not only good for us, but also good for our trading partners. We have seen him use tariffs as a cudgel to try to get fair trading out of our partners. But what will be the impact of these tariffs should he end up keeping them and putting them in place on the American people?
So, we've already seen that the threat of tariffs can be extremely effective in negotiating. We've seen it with Colombia, we've seen it with Canada, we've seen it with Mexico, and I would imagine that we're going to see it elsewhere in the world. The thing is that, as you know, President Trump has his set of critics, and they're all pointing to these tariffs as it's going to cause inflation, it's going to cause hardship. Can tariffs cause a little bit of pain if they're instituted? The answer is yes, Roger, they can. Can it cause inflation? The way we have to look at tariffs is it is a one-time price reset. It is very different from inflation, which is cumulative and constant. So while it potentially, or possibly a small time horizon, be a price reset higher, what it can do, though, is make it even more effective as a negotiation tool because now it has teeth. Secondarily, sometimes in order to get what you want, and you astutely pointed out that many of the trade deals that we have simply are not fair. And we're getting the short end of the stick for quite a long time. So, it's amazing to me that the same person who says you have to go on a diet in order to achieve a fit body, or you have to exercise or spend time at the gym and, no pain, no gain, they're the most vocal critics that'll say, oh, we don't want any pain at all from tariffs. Sometimes you have to be willing to take a small amount of pain for a small amount of time so that we can achieve goals that give you prosperity over the long run. And I think that's exactly what President Trump is trying to do here.
Now, President Trump has said that he would like interest rates to come down and wants to make home ownership and housing more affordable. How do you think he can achieve this goal?
As we know, home values have gone up a lot. That's tough on first-time home buyers because the disparity between the monthly payment on owning a home and renting a home has widened quite significantly. And it makes it a little bit difficult for someone, maybe a lot difficult for someone. And then you have a lot of misinformation out there that is literally coaching people to say, hey, do not purchase a home. It's cheaper to rent and things like that. Roger, in the United States, there's 136 million households. 91 million are owned, 45 million are rented. Those who own homes have collectively $37 trillion in equity. Those who rent have collectively zero in equity. So, we have to look broader than if we want to try to help people get wealthy, generationally wealthy. A big part of that is real estate. So first of all, the mindset has to change. And secondarily, President Trump is absolutely right when he says he wants to bring interest rates down. Now, the thing about interest rates is that interest rates are typically governed by a few things. There's risk premium of credit worthiness and things like that. But another is that you have to have a real rate of return. So, Roger, for example, if one of your listeners were to put themselves in position, okay, I'm the one lending money, and they want to get a rate of return of, let's just say, 4%. Well, if they want to get a rate of return of 4%, but if inflation is 3%, that's going to eat into it. So what you have to do is you have to combine them both and say, now you can loan money at 7%, and since inflation's 3%, you're getting that real rate of return of 4%. That's after inflation. So that's kind of how interest rates are determined. So as you can see, inflation plays a major role in what the ultimate interest rate would be. So if inflation's lower, you can get your real rate of return at, let's just say, 4%. But if now inflation's 2 instead of 3, you can offer interest rates on mortgages at 6%. So it's important that we understand the role that inflation plays. Now, because inflation is so important, you would think that the mechanism that we are able to measure inflation would be accurate. But so many things in government data are done in an antiquated fashion, and this is no different. The way that we're looking at these inflation numbers, and whether it be the CPI report or the PCE, CPI is Consumer Price Index, PCE is Personal Consumption Expenditures, these are the two typical measuring sticks for inflation. The Federal Reserve, which is going to set interest rates, they're the ones that are going to be looking at more closely at the PCE. Now, PCE right now is at 2.8%. They want it to be 2. So they're talking tough. They say, we got to get inflation under control. We got to get inflation. And that's good that they do want to do that. But the problem is they're looking at 2.8%. And I don't believe that inflation is truly at 2.8%. The reason for that, Roger, is because the way that you look at inflation, the biggest component within that 2.8% is called shelter. So shelter is a roof over your head. Now, many people listening probably think that, well, that's your home value or your mortgage payment or things like that. That's not the way the government looks at it. And I can understand why. They look at housing or shelter as a service. So the way to convert that is to look at rents. So they look at what people paying a rent or what an owner of a home would equivalently charge for rent. So that's the way they monitor. And this is the largest component. So it's the most influential aspect. In CPI, it's 45% of it. So now, when we look at how important this is, the problem with the way that the government is looking at the data is it is antiquated. it has an enormous lag. For example, here we are, mid-February. We're in the second part of February. The most recent data that we have on PCE is from December, but it gets a lot worse than that. What happens is that the government can't handle looking at the entire country because it's just too big. So they say, we're going to take the country and slice it up into 6 segments. And we're only going to look at one segment each month, and we're going to rotate through. So that means they're going to look at for example, let's say they're looking at segment 1 this month. Well, when they do, the other 5 segments are backward-looking data. And as you can imagine, one's a month old, one's 2 months old, 3 months old, 4 months old, 5 months old, and one's 6 months old. So therefore, what starts to happen is that in points of inflection when rents are either rising quickly or dropping quickly, and right now they're dropping quickly, the data becomes very old. Now let's add to that another problem. And that problem is that when people are being surveyed for what they're paying in rent, it may be reflective of a lease that they signed 6 months prior to that or 8 months prior to that.
Barry, I'm going to ask you to hold that thought for 1 second while we go to a quick commercial break, and then we'll pick back up with Barry Habib, economic guru.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Roger Stone.
In these turbulent times, with Elon Musk and Doge uncovering billions in fraud and waste and corruption, with the national debt spiraling out of control and unsustainable, with the Fed printing money like it's going out of style, now is the time to protect your retirement, to protect your nest egg, your IRA, your 401k. And the best way to do that is by acquiring precious metals like gold and silver. And the people that I trust to do that are the folks at the Colonial Metals Group. You can find them at colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone or go to freegoldguide.com and they'll answer all your questions. So go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone today. You'll be glad you did. Now we return to Barry Habib, the Chief Executive Officer of MBS Highway. Barry, I'm delighted to have you. Let's continue.
So there's a big lag, as you could see. The problem with that is that in points of inflection like you have now, when rents are dropping rather significantly, you're not picking that up. So we're making decisions on what interest rates are based upon old data. Now let's compare it with what's really happening in real time. When you look at any of the many, many choices you have, you can go to CoreLogic, Apartment List, Redfin, Zillow. There are numerous ways that you can examine what the current rental increases are, and they're going up at 1.5% per year. So if we were to use the real numbers and then include that in the weighting for inflation, we'd be at 2% right now. So mortgage rates, 2% inflation. So mortgage rates would really be at 6%, not 7%. And you think about the amount of money that would save. You think about the open doors that it would give to people to purchase homes. So we're just looking at bad data. That's the problem. And it's important because, number one, just like in professional sports, when you added instant replay, it made it more modernized, more up to date, more instantaneous. That made the sport better. With the United States of America, we should be looking at numbers in real time and not making the decisions that affect tens and hundreds of millions of people that is based on wrong data. Roger, the problem with this is under the Biden administration, when Biden used that $1.9 trillion budget buster that we did not need, and then you had all these other programs which were littered with fraud, that contributed, of course, greatly to inflation. But the Fed was complicit. And the reason why the Fed was complicit is because they were looking at old data. Inflation was rising, but because, again, the lag in the most important and largest component, shelter, rents, because of the lag, in real time rents were going up, but the Fed was looking at the old data and they said, oh, we can keep rates at zero. We can keep quantitative easing going. So this is why they put gasoline on Biden's inflation fire. And this is what we're still struggling and suffering with right now. Because remember, Roger, inflation, while the rate of change may come down, the way that people feel it is on a cumulative basis. So we have inflation. It's coming down in its rate of change, but it's not going down in prices. Its prices are going up just more slowly.
When we come back, I'm going to ask Barry Habib more about Janet Yellen's handling of debt issuance and how she's handled things since she became Treasury Secretary. So don't go away. We'll be right back with more of Barry Habib.
This is The Roger Stone Show.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Being a woman is a lot. Ollie supports you and yours with expert solutions for every age and life stage. They just launched 2 new products exclusively at Walmart. Period Hero combats bloat, mood swings, and more during PMS. And Balance Perimeno to support hormonal balance, mood, and metabolism during perimenopause. Grab yours at ollie.com. Ollie! These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump.
They went after a guy named Roger Stone, who's sitting in the office. And I'll say this in front of Roger, he's no baby. And right now, he's cleaner than anybody in this place. No, they treated him very unfairly.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
This is The Roger Stone Show, presented by Colonial Metals Group. Now, here's Roger Stone.
And we're back with Barry Habib, the Chief Executive Officer of MBS Highway, and I think indisputably the country's foremost expert on the mortgage and housing industries, the man I look to for immediate economic analysis whenever there is a major development, such as the release of inflation or unemployment numbers. To get back to our discussion, Barry, what do you think of Janet Yellen's handling of debt issuance when she was the Treasury Secretary?
Well, I didn't really like her as a Fed chair, and I think she was much worse as a Treasury Secretary. She bungled it, Roger. Think about this. When Janet Yellen was issuing debt, she has a choice. Do you want to do shorter term, longer term? Because she could do 1 month, 3 month bills, 1 year bills, or she could do 5, 7 year, 10 year notes, 30-year bonds, things like that. What did she choose to do? When she could have put paper out there for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, at a rate of 1.4, 1.5%, you know what she chose to do? She chose to put out 2 year because she could save 0.75%. I mean, think about the foolishness of that, because then 2 years later, the U.S. government, we are paying 5% on that, 4.5% on that, instead of securing for 30 years 1.5% or so that we could have had. Now, Scott Bessent is much wiser. Now, the idiots out there are saying, well, Scott Bessent's kind of doing the same thing. He's putting out more short-term debt. But he's putting out short-term debt when short-term debt is higher and expected to come down. So when it rolls over in a year or 2 years from now, we'll get the benefit of the reduction. And why tie ourselves into longer-term debt at a higher interest rate when it's going to come down? So Janet Yellen, very foolish. Scott Bessent, very wise. Now, debt is really important. That's why Doge is so critical, Roger, because it's supply and demand. The money that Doge saves us means that the government gets into less debt. Less debt means less paper that has to be issued for debt, less that has to support the government, and that also means it can help overall interest rates come down. This is so important. And there's one more point on the debt that I'd like to say, Roger, really quick, is that gold could be a great answer. You see, back in the early 70s, before Nixon took us off the gold standard, the U.S. priced its gold that it holds at $42 an ounce. $42 an ounce, just to put it into context, a little over $2,900 an ounce today. They never marked it to market. So we have over 800 metric tons of gold at $42 an ounce. If we were to take that and mark it to market and price it correctly, that would give the U.S. an additional between $800 and $900 billion, almost $1 trillion, Roger. Now, that's a one-time adjustment that goes into the Treasury's general account, but that's $900 billion less in debt that has to be issued. That would drive interest rates lower very quickly. It's a one-shot deal, but that could really help interest rates come down if we could pull that off.
This is precisely why we are sponsored here by the colonialmetals.group.com. You can go to colonialmetals.group.com/stone. Barry, I know you are a believer in gold and you hold some of it in your portfolio. I have a little tiny bit of it myself. I think you make an excellent point. Final question. What is your opinion? We've got about a minute and a half. What is your opinion of President Trump forming a cryptocurrency reserve for the United States government?
Well, boy, if that's going to happen, the key would be to be long crypto, because that would mean that crypto, as scarce as it is, would become even more scarce. And that would drive the price up. And if other governments would likely follow suit, and what that would do is that would drive the price of things like Bitcoin significantly higher, if that comes to be. We don't know if that'll happen, Roger, but yes. And do I think it's a good idea? Well, look, it's a store of value that's generally accepted. I think it's a good idea. I truly believe in things like Bitcoin, similar to gold. Who said that gold has this, the store of value magic trait? But Bitcoin is also something that is it's finite. So I think that's a wise choice.
All right. I want to thank Barry Habib, the Chief Executive Owner of MBS Highway, for joining us today. God bless you, Barry, and thanks for dropping in.
God bless you. God bless you, sir.